let's hit a lore corner real fast.
Yeah, because I know you have a heart out and
yeah,
a little bit. So
no, it's all good. We have a fairly short. It's gonna be a 2-parter. We're gonna do part 2 next week. But when you're getting your stasis fragments and your abilities from Elsie each week, good old Exo Stranger, she gives you pieces of a lore book called The Dark Future. And I feel okay doing the first half of this because if you've unlocked your stasis class at all, you've gotten the first few pages of this. And if you've done your first couple of aspects and fragments, you've gotten probably up to page 7 or 8 at this point. I want to talk about this, though, because this is something that it's rooted in the reality of the game, but has not taken place in our reality, and God willing, never will. Right? Like, we're pretty confident that the events of Beyond Light and us choosing to, like, sure, we embraced the darkness, but we didn't let it overtake us. That's the pivotal moment of this future not becoming a reality in Elsie's eyes for right now. Right? So, in the Dark Future lore book, what it is it's a series of recollections from Elsie talking about her and Anna's journey in the future. In the future, the tower's been wiped out. The darkest day happened, which is the guardians that took on the darkness and succumbed to it, including our own guardian, including the young wolf, sided with Aramis for an attack on the tower. Savathun's forces attacked, and the remaining Cabal attacked as well. And in all of that, we start finding out what happened to some of our allies. Elsie and Anna are currently in hiding. We find that out. They are back to Europa, I believe. They haven't seen each other in years when we encounter them. And when they're talking, they're going down through these, and they still have what's left of Rasputin on a drive. And at first, when you're reading this, you're like, "Oh my god! Like this is the reunion of Anna and Elsie from canon." Because when you get this page, you don't know that you haven't seen the reunion scene between them yet. That comes later on as you're unlocking more of the stasis fragments. And when you get down to the end of page number 2, you realize, oh, this is definitely in an alternate reality. They've gone to the Deep Stone Crypt, and they find the Drifter's body. He's been ripped apart, dismembered, experimented on, and the subsequent pages are talking about so much of that. They managed to reactivate Rasputin. They go back to where the tower was, and it's been completely and totally destroyed. They're reminiscing about, like, what would Zavala say? Elsie doesn't remember a lot of what happened before she was an Exo because Clovis made sure of that. She wiped it. And you hear Zavala walking around on a crutch with a bum leg, living in the ruins of the Almighty behind the old tower. And he tells the sisters, like, who are trying to ready a battle plan to go after Savathun. It's not Savathun you want. It's the Witch Queen. And they're confused. We all know Savathun as the Witch Queen. And he reveals that in this timeline, it's Eris. Eris is the one who led the attack on the tower. She was completely corrupted by the darkness. And you start to understand. Like, they ask, where is Ikora? And all Zavala can do is point at the tower, and she's buried under that. She took down all these ships with her. She went down, and nobody's aware that Ikora is dead. And he's like, yeah, she's gone. So Zavala helps the sisters make a plan, and they decide that they're going to need to get Mara Sov on board. They're going to need the Leviathan. They're going to need to, they're going to have to convince the Traveler. And it is a book that I don't think me summarizing it does enough justice to it. It is something that everybody should read it. Now the lore is much more accessible to you in the game. You should absolutely read this book because it's so wrenching. It's absolutely heart-wrenching. Zavala says in it to Anna and Elsie. Anna asks what happened that day. It's been impossible to find accurate recounts. And he goes, we were outnumbered. When the Witch Queen found me, she called me a non-believer as she tore my leg from its joint and pulled the light from my ghost, discarding me like trash. Ikora had it worse. I looked upon the traveler, hoping it would be our salvation from the atrocity, but instead it just left. The traveler abandoned them again. Abandoned us when we needed it most. I wanted to reach out and grab it, make it stay, make it save us, as we always thought it would. But that was it. Gone. Cabal forces crumbled the rest. He says Gaul's plan to ensure the traveler and harvest its light, the blueprints, they're all here, and he's copying them now. Rasputin is. Rasputin helps them come up with a plan to bring the traveler back and force it to fight for what's the very few remnants of humanity at this point. We'll get to the rest of the book next week because we need to break this down in more and more detail. But essentially the summation of the book, the implication we're given at the end is the traveler sends Elsie back in time. Back to before all of this, back to before we meet her in Destiny 1, long before that, actually. It's given the implication she goes back about 100, maybe 150 years before the events of Destiny 1, and since she's an Exo, she can't die.
Right.
Well,
I mean,
die.
Yeah.
It's implied that she's caught in a time loop until the past changes, that the traveler has put her in one. And that's what leads her to us. She, instead of us finding it on her own, she decides to guide us towards it, to avert the dark future, to avert what's happening. Like, to the point where no time to explain. When you have the little stasis buddy pop up next to you, the gun shooting through it is, with its cadence, with its sound, it is Elsie's No Time to Explain from the vanilla Destiny 1 campaign, shooting through the portal to help you.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
The little tangents in this story, the things like this, like, you know, just from hearing her dialogue post-campaign and reading the description about her, that she's from another time. She's from the future, and she's here to avert that future. Having time travel open to us now opens a myriad of possibilities for this franchise going forward, and it's something I want to speculate on over the Christmas break from the Schwabs and as we've gone through the remainder of the content that's in front of us, because I think this puts Destiny both in a very interesting and unprecedented time, but also in a very precarious way that if they don't handle this correctly, it literally can destroy the franchise. You can't just use time travel as a Deus Ex Machina for everything, because I know instantly some fans are going to be like, oh my god, we could go back and save Cade, which a lot of us thought was going to happen last year with the Sundial, that we were going to screw things up and go save Cade. Instead, we saved Saint 14, and we don't yet understand what the ramifications of that may be
Right.
to the future. And so imagine if we were to do something like that, and a lot of the hardcore fans of the series, especially the students of the lore, would say, do not undo Cade's death. That's such a pivotal moment in the franchise that you can't undo that.
Mm-hmm.
Like the franchise, as much as I hate to say it, I love Cade. Cade is one of my two favorite characters in the entire franchise, up there with Drifter. Losing Cade was for the best, though. And I think if you look back on a lot of their decisions, like characters they've chosen to let go, even ones that were in the lore, like, we don't want to bring those back. Saint was an unprecedented thing. We brought him back because Osiris loved him so much. And we were able to bring him back. Something Osiris, the greatest guardian to ever live, was never able to do. The one who's now without his light. We were able to do that, though. We were able to reunite Saint and Osiris. And so time travel is something they've been building towards for the last year or so. The Corridors of Time, I do not think we're done with those. This book all but confirms that to me.
Yeah. Plus, like,
so
the time, like, I think the time travel stuff is so interesting because that aspect itself can bring back so many, like, even from just like the content vaulting stuff. This is how you, like, and not just lore stuff, but this is how you bring back, like, if you want to bring Destiny 1 stuff back and you want to have like a season of people, hey, you want to experience Destiny 1, we can make that a season or something. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
It's so, like, the time traveling stuff is so interesting, and that gives you so many new things to play around with the not only the lore, but just like visiting new and old locations, seeing characters that are gone, like, you know what I mean?
I agree. I agree, and I think as long as we use it sparingly, it's a good thing for the franchise.
Yeah, you can't use it like,
yeah,
oh, we messed this up, so we're gonna time travel back and fix it. You know what I mean? Like, you can't do that. That
I do expect that to happen at some point.
Yeah.
Maybe it's with Savathun. Maybe we just absolutely fuck up, and us traveling back in time allows us to quote beat her in the campaign, and then we pull a King's Fall and go in and kill her for real in the Ascendant Plane. Like, there's so many possibilities you can do with things like the Sundial, that you can do with things like the Corridors of Time, that you can do apparently with the Traveler's Light now. There's so many things you can do, and I think that opens up so many possibilities for the lore, for the future of gameplay, for future activities. I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what's going on. Sorry, my kid is still awake. She's excited too, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just really excited to see, like, even like the time traveling stranger. Will that change? Like, will we meet like this timeline stranger at some point? You know, too. Like,
so that's perhaps the most interesting thing to me about this is, how does time travel exactly work in this universe? Are there two Elsies running around? Did she throw this Elsie in cryo or something, like, or is this one in cryostasis until a certain point in the future or something? Like, who knows? Like, I don't know how that works. Does she just get beamed back into her past body? Like, there's so many questions I have about this, and I have a feeling it's the latter. I think it's her getting beamed back, her consciousness getting beamed into her past body. I think that's what happens here. It's different than when we went through the sundial and our physical body went, when we went into the corridors of time and we saw our funeral through time. Like,
right. Especially since she's an exo, you can upload the consciousness and send it back. You know, I think that's
not even that. I mean, like, it's very clear, and we'll get to this. It's very clear at the end that it is done through the Traveler's Light.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, like, if I never get an explanation, I'm okay with that. It's space magic. It's a giant golf ball in the sky that sent a robotic lady back in time to stop the collapse of the universe, like, against the space Doritos and a deranged eyeless hunter with a turban. Like, you can't get much more ridiculous than the premise I just gave you, but it's done very tastefully.
That's fair. You know,
so
it's, yeah, you're right.
But that's gonna do it for Lore Corner.
Yeah, and I think that's gonna do it for this episode of Tower Casuals, Josh.
I think so too.